Every year, countless underground fighters travel to places like Thailand, lured by the promise of money, fame, and brutal glory. These illegal fights aren't just about testing strength. They've become the backbone of a massive gambling empire. Behind the flashing lights, cheering crowds, and blood-soaked arenas lies something darker. When there aren't enough fighters willing to step into the ring, Thailand's human trafficking mafia steps in. They abduct men from other countries, strip them of their freedom, and throw them into secret prisons. There, torture and relentless beatings break their spirit until they finally give in and fight under the mafia's control. Some fighters arrive willingly, drawn by greed or pride. Others are blackmailed, tricked, or forced into this bloody game. In these underground prisons, survival is nearly impossible. Once you're locked inside, escape is almost unheard of. That's where our story begins. At the start, we see the tragic fate of a fighter whose older brother traveled to Thailand, hoping to make money through matches. But in the brutal ring, the man was mercilessly killed by Tong Pa, the reigning Muay Thai champion feared by all. Tong Pa was a monster in human form, unbeatable in the cage. But fate twisted when a young American boxer named Kurt Sloane stepped forward. Fueled by rage and heartbreak, Kurt fought Tong Pa and, against all odds, defeated him. That fight wasn't just a victory, it was vengeance for his brother's death. When Tong Pa fell, the mafia expected Kurt to stay behind and become their next champion. They needed a face, a legend, someone who could continue the empire Tong Pa built. But Kurt refused. He chose to walk away, leaving Thailand behind and returning to America to live an ordinary life. He believed the nightmare was over. He was wrong. Time shifts to the present day. Kurt is now a successful MMA fighter in the United States, celebrated for his skill and toughness inside the cage. His life seems stable, free from the horrors of Thailand. One evening, after finishing a shower, he steps out to find a group of men waiting for him. They claim to be U.S. Marshals. They confront him about a murder he committed 18 months ago in Thailand. Immediately, Kurt realizes they're talking about Tong Pa. He doesn't deny it and even shows willingness to cooperate. But something feels off. He asks them to first show their badges. One man steps forward as if to reveal his badge, but before Kurt can react, another man slams a powerful electric shock into his body. The jolt knocks him unconscious instantly. When Kurt wakes up, he finds himself face to face with the true mastermind behind this operation, Thomas Moore. Thomas calmly explains his frustration. When Kurt killed Tong Pa, Thomas wanted him to step into Tong Pa's shoes and become the new champion of their empire. But instead, Kurt abandoned everything and returned to the States. That betrayal cost Thomas millions. Now, he demands repayment. He wants Kurt to fight again, this time against someone even deadlier. Only then will he be allowed to walk free. Without choice, Kurt is dragged back to Thailand and locked inside a brutal prison. This is his new home, and the only way out is through combat. Inside the prison, Kurt finally meets his next opponent, Mongkut. The moment he lays eyes on him, his heart sinks. Mongkut isn't just big. He looks like a 7-foot giant carved from stone, a walking mountain of muscle. Weighing nearly 400 pounds, Mongkut has the kind of strength that seems beyond human. Facing him would be like trying to cut through rock with a glass blade. Thomas lays out the terms. If Kurt fights and wins, he'll walk away with $1 million and his freedom. But if he refuses, or worse, loses, he'll never leave this prison alive. Crawford, Thomas's right-hand man, leans in and whispers a warning. The people here worship Tong Pa. By killing him, Kurt made himself their #1 enemy. Now it's time to pay the price. The very next day, Kurt contemplates escaping. But before he can act, another prisoner warns him that a group of men are coming for him. Sure enough, several inmates approach, their faces filled with hate. They attack, trying to overwhelm Kurt, but years of training pay off. He fights back with ferocity, striking them down one after another until no one dares step closer. His resilience stuns the prison. The guards, however, aren't impressed. Watching from above, the warden sips his morning tea and scowls. He orders the guards to punish Kurt. Beat him until he remembers never to raise his hand in my prison again. That night, they lash him with whips until his back is torn and bleeding. But Kurt refuses to break. Despite the agony, he stands tall, glaring at his captors like steel forged in fire. Other prisoners watch in shock. They realize this man won't crumble easily. But they also know sooner or later, the prison will eat him alive. Here, every inmate looks at Kurt like he's nothing more than a punching bag, waiting to be broken. One day, Kurt bumps into a lone prisoner named Briggs. Unlike the others, Briggs keeps to himself. But those who cross him never walk away the same. Unfortunately for Kurt, today is his unlucky day. Briggs beats him savagely, tossing him around like a rag doll. But unlike the others, Briggs doesn't try to kill him. Instead, he's teaching Kurt a brutal lesson: respect the hierarchy or suffer. The guards arrive and, seeing both men fighting, punish them together. Once again, Kurt is whipped and left in agony. But while Kurt screams from the pain, Briggs doesn't make a sound. His face doesn't flinch, his body doesn't tremble. It's as if the torture is nothing more than routine. Kurt can't help but wonder, how does a man endure such pain without breaking? Days later, Kurt spots one of the guards holding a cell phone. With quick reflexes, he steals it and manages to call his wife Lou. In desperation, he tells her he's been kidnapped and locked in a prison in Bangkok. But before he can say more, the guards catch him. They beat him mercilessly, and Thomas once again reminds him, "You'll never survive here unless you fight. The longer you resist, the worse it gets. Enter the ring, and this nightmare ends." But Kurt refuses. Thomas grows furious, but he knows he'll eventually break. Meanwhile, Lou arrives in Thailand, searching for her husband. Before marrying Kurt, she had been a police officer here. Using her connections, she quickly learns which prison is holding him. At the same time, Kurt receives an unexpected visit from Briggs. Curious, Kurt asks him, "How did you endure the whipping without flinching? How can you take that much pain and stay silent?" Briggs leads him to a small plant growing in the prison yard. He explains that touching this plant releases chemicals that numb nerves and dull pain. If Kurt rubs its extract on his wounds, his body will withstand torture better. That night, Kurt does exactly that. It works, his pain eases, his resolve hardens. Soon after, Kurt is reunited with someone from his past, Master Durand, the blind martial arts teacher who once trained him to defeat Tong Po. Shockingly, Durand has been thrown into the same prison, punished by the mafia for helping Kurt in the past. Even worse, they blinded him, gouging out his eyes as revenge. Despite his condition, Durand stays calm. He tells Kurt not to feel guilty. "Maybe this was always my fate," he says. Their reunion, however, doesn't go unnoticed. Thomas learns of it, and he also learns that Lou has come to Thailand looking for her husband. Without hesitation, he orders his men to kidnap her. Soon, Kurt is shown a video of Lou in captivity. Crawford makes it clear, "Now you have no choice. You will fight or she will die." With Lou's life hanging in the balance, Kurt finally agrees to train. Durand, though blind, steps up to guide him once more. This time, he insists on a different approach. Losing his sight forced Durand to rely on senses beyond vision. He feels vibrations, air shifts, subtle sounds, things most people ignore. He wants Kurt to learn the same. Training blindfolded, Kurt begins to heighten his awareness. Briggs also joins in, pushing Kurt to his physical limits. To prepare him, Briggs even brings in a 7-foot fighter who resembles Mongkut in size and power. The first time they clash, the giant tosses Kurt aside effortlessly, nearly choking the life out of him. But with each day, Kurt adapts, growing faster, sharper, and harder. He learns to move like water, flexible where Mongkut is rigid, swift where Mongkut is slow. Still, Durand worries. He warns Kurt that Mongkut isn't just strong. He's a monster enhanced beyond natural limits. His fears are confirmed when Durand sneaks into Mongkut's training session. There, he discovers the horrifying truth. Mongkut's strength isn't only genetic. He's been engineered. Using experimental steroids and biochemical enhancements, scientists have transformed him into a superhuman fighter, bigger, faster, and deadlier than anything Kurt has ever faced. Outraged, Durand confronts Thomas, begging him to cancel the fight. He even offers to step into the ring himself. But Thomas laughs at the idea. Who would pay to watch a blind man fight? No, he wants a spectacle. Only Kurt can deliver that. The scene opens back in the prison. Kurt has now been trapped in this place for weeks, enduring brutal training sessions, unfair fights, and endless punishment. He knows that the warden is only fattening him up for one grand spectacle, the death match against the 7-foot giant Mongkut. But instead of breaking him, this harsh treatment is forging him into something sharper. Each sparring session with Briggs, each round of pain, each calculated move has been carving him into a warrior more relentless than ever. One night, Briggs leans close and tells Kurt a secret. He reveals the true purpose behind Mongkut's fight. Mongkut isn't just a fighter. He's the gambling syndicate's ultimate weapon. Rich people from across the world, pour their fortunes into betting on him. Mongkut has never lost, and that unbeaten record is what makes him valuable. If Kurt could beat him, the entire system would collapse. But Briggs warns him, the syndicate will never allow it. Even if Kurt wins, they will try to kill him. This means Kurt is not just fighting Mongkut, he's fighting an entire empire. Soon, Kurt is taken to the arena. The prison transforms into a stadium filled with roaring crowds, gamblers, and crime lords. Mongkut is brought out like a god, muscles bulging, towering over everyone, his presence terrifying. Kurt steps into the cage, facing the man he's been preparing for. The crowd screams for blood, and the warden smiles, already certain that Kurt is doomed. The fight begins, and Mongkut is a mountain. Every punch from him shakes the cage. Every knee feels like it could snap Kurt in half. Mongkut batters Kurt across the ring, throwing him like a rag doll, crushing his ribs, bruising his face. The audience chants Mongkut's name, expecting a swift execution. But Kurt refuses to stay down. Every time he crashes against the floor, he drags himself back up. Between blows, Kurt remembers his training, the speed drills, the counterattacks, the rhythm Briggs forced into him. He begins slipping past Mongkut's strikes, using agility instead of brute force. The crowd starts noticing the shift. For the first time, Mongkut looks slightly frustrated. Kurt lands clean hits, quick combinations to the giant's ribs, elbows to the chin, low kicks to slow him down. The tide begins to turn. But Mongkut is too powerful to underestimate. He traps Kurt in a corner and smashes him with a devastating elbow, nearly knocking him out cold. Blood pours from Kurt's mouth and he staggers. The warden laughs, thinking it's over. But then Kurt hears echoes of his brother's voice in his head. He remembers why he came here, to avenge his family, to bring down this empire of corruption. He summons everything left inside him. With one last surge of strength, Kurt launches a furious counterattack. He dodges Mongkut's haymaker and drives a crushing knee into the giant's ribs. Then he delivers a spinning elbow to Mongkut's temple, rattling the monster. The crowd gasps. Kurt follows with relentless strikes, punches, elbows, kicks, every ounce of his training unleashed in a storm. Mongkut stumbles. The unstoppable titan looks vulnerable for the first time. Finally, Kurt leaps into the air and lands a brutal flying knee directly on Mongkut's head. The giant crashes to the ground like a collapsing building. Silence falls across the arena. The warden's smile vanishes. Mongkut, the unbeaten legend, is lying unconscious at Kurt's feet. The audience erupts into chaos. Gamblers scream in rage, some in awe. Briggs bursts into laughter, proud of his student. But the syndicate will not accept this outcome. Guards storm the cage, trying to kill Kurt. A riot explodes inside the prison arena. Briggs and other allies jump in to fight beside Kurt. The cage becomes a battlefield, fists flying everywhere. In the chaos, Kurt finds the warden. The man responsible for orchestrating all this bloodshed tries to flee, but Kurt corners him. The warden begs for mercy, but Kurt leaves him to the furious crowd who tear his empire apart. Justice has finally caught up with him. As the smoke clears, Kurt stands victorious, battered but alive. Mongkut lies defeated, the syndicate broken, the system crumbling. Briggs tells him he has proven himself beyond any fighter he's ever trained. Kurt walks away free, having avenged his brother and destroyed the empire built on blood and corruption. The film closes with Kurt looking at the horizon, his body scarred, his spirit unbroken. He is no longer just a man seeking vengeance. He has become a symbol of resistance, a fighter who toppled the untouchable. The cage door swings open, and Kurt steps out into the world, finally free.